friends, my name is Jackson and I'm one of the pastors here with Circles, and today we are continuing our journey through the book of Luke, and this is our true crime podcast. This is our investigation into Jesus. So Luke was a journalist trying to solve a case, ultimately trying to build a case, really, and sometimes in life you might find yourself trying to do the same, because occasionally life sends us moments that make us put our detective caps on. We have to solve it. We have to figure it out. No one's going to help us, so we got to do it ourselves. This happened to a man in Kentucky. He was the victim of a crime. Well, it was a quirky crime. So in rural Kentucky, a homeowner named Charles noticed that his lawnmower was moving in the middle of the night. He would go back to where it should be and notice that it was not where it was supposed to be. It was across his property. And this made him so furious. This made him so mad. And when I'm reading about this in the papers, I can tell there's some kind of grudge, because he just knew that it was Gary. I don't know why, but he pointed his finger right at his friend Gary. And he said, "My neighbor Gary did it. I know it's him. Lock him up, people." Now, Charles isn't Sherlock Holmes. Charles had no evidence. Charles was just suspicious, and maybe he had a grudge. So what did Charles do? Charles set up cameras. Oh yeah, Charles got all high-tech and fancy. Charles set up cameras, and Charles set up a lawn surveillance bust. He was ready to catch Gary in the act of moving, not stealing, of moving his lawnmower. So eventually Charles woke up one morning and noticed his lawnmower was moved. Usually he would be furious, but not today. He was excited because he set up his cameras. So he went to the cameras to look at the footage to see Gary in the act. He was expected to see it. He hit play on the tape, and immediately his eyebrows raised. It wasn't Gary. Nope. It was a goat. It was a goat from the neighbor's yard. He saw a goat sneak onto his lawnmower, turn it on, and ride it around before poorly parking it and then running off into the middle of the night. Talk about an unexpected turn of events and a twist. And actually, unexpected twists are what make people love true crime podcasts in the first place. And Luke loved doing this as well. Luke loved the unexpected twists. Luke loved the unexpected details. Luke loved the unexpected characters. So whether it's a true crime podcast or writing a story, characters are crucial for your understanding, even the unexpected ones, like these goats. Because like if Charles never set up a camera, he'd never know to even expect goats. Charles needed that information to come to a conclusion. Information is what helps us make solutions in the first place. That's especially true with background information. A person's background helps us know what motivated them, what formed them, and what shaped them. And that's true with Jesus too, and Luke does that for Jesus. So that's why Luke gives us context on the background. He gives us context on the characters in Jesus' life. He wants us to see the context of everything. He was obsessed with these unexpected suspects, too. He zoomed in on people like the extended family, the disciples, and the side characters within the life of Christ. So in true crime format, Luke opens up his book with orientation. So just like in college, you kick off with new student orientation, Luke begins with Jesus orientation. His research proved to be really robust too. He reported on the extended family of Jesus, the birth of some of his family members, then the birth of Jesus, the prophecies of the Old Testament, and then the early life of Jesus. And then, knowing that orientation is key to comprehension, he begins to break down these key characters. He's like, you're going to need to know these names. And these are the characters in the ministry of Christ. So yeah, you are about to meet the disciples. However, this is not just character development. Luke wants you to see something. Luke wants you to see Jesus' overall strategy. This is his method for sparking a movement. So what was his method? We're going to break it down right here. We're going to see two movement building steps when Jesus forms his team. So let's take a look at Luke chapter 5. One day as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats that belonged to Simon and asked him to put it out a little from the shore. Then he sat down and taught people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he went to Simon and said, "Put it out in the deep water and put down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they have done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came with both boats filled, so they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' feet and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken in. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on you will fish for people." So they pulled their boats off the shore, left everything, and followed him. So like we said, Jesus had 2 steps for sparking a movement. And this is the first step. Jesus picked the perfectly imperfect people. So what is the first thing that Jesus does when it's time for this movement to spark? He built a team. Now, he didn't go to Indeed.com. He didn't go to local temples to find the best of the best. Jesus went to a dock packed with smelly fishermen. That would be like trying to build an NBA team and going to a local playground for your recruitment. It's not reasonable. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. Like, this is like a recruitment scene from a superhero movie, except no one is very impressive and everyone's kind of wimpy. Why did Jesus do it this way? But I love this. Jesus showed them that their significance was not found in their power, but in his. Jesus picked perfectly imperfect people to spark his movement, to create a worldwide movement, and they were perfectly imperfect. Jesus chose them because he would be glorified through them. And that story was hard to read. It was long. Do you see how much detail Luke uses in this thing? The other gospel authors tell stories so much quicker. That's not Luke. Luke goes into so much detail. He wants you to know who was there. He wants you to know who saw it. He wants you to know every lick of proof there could be. Why did he do that? It's because Luke is an investigator. Keep this in mind. This is not happening too long after the death of Jesus. Thus, a sizable chunk of these people were there. They're still alive. So he is basically challenging his readers to fact check him. These perfectly imperfect men witnessed it all. The miracles, the teachings, the spark of a universal movement. Luke is saying, hey, check it out. Go investigate for yourself. You're going to be surprised at what you find. Because Jesus was God in the flesh. But get this, even he, with all that power pumping through his veins, felt the need to start a team before starting his ministry. He sought out disciples, friends, and companions for his journey. If Jesus needed community, imagine how much more you need it too. So you need to be sure to prioritize picking the right people for your journey, because they will push you forward. They will keep you grounded, and they will help you on every single step of the way. Jesus understood something crucial. We need to surround ourselves with good people because they help us go far. Because these disciples aren't just companions, they are witnesses. They are witnesses to the power of God in action in their little town. So let's dive back into this amazing story. Jesus assembled his people. Now it was time for him to display his power. This story is not just about recruitment. It is about astonishment. Like, Luke wants you to see that God proved his power through Jesus. People walked away from that moment knowing the power of God. While Jesus was teaching on that shore, they noticed these weary fishermen struggling at the dock. After days of suffering, days of struggling, their nets remained empty and their bellies and bank accounts were looking the same. Then a man named Jesus showed up. A man named Jesus who was not a fisherman by trade, just a wise rabbi. A man who seemed to have some supernatural power over nature. He looked at them and offered them their fishing advice and said, hey, go to that part of the lake you've been fishing. Yeah, go there again. And they were exacerbated. They were like, dude, we've been doing this. Like, we've tried. It's not working. Like, we have been fishing all day and all night, and we have not even caught a goldfish cracker. Jesus insisted. And they could tell this man had wisdom, so they listened. They went back into the water, they cast their nets, because what did they have to lose? They gave it a shot. And within seconds, y'all, their boat was supernaturally filled with fish. The recognizable salty smell of fish just wafted through the air as these not yet disciples just celebrated all that just had happened. Look at all these fish. Like, they were going to be eating fish tacos for months. Now, to modern ears, this just seems like seafood. This just seems like a seafood update. But keep in mind, they lived in a society that largely practiced bartering. When they caught so many fish that their boat was sinking, this was the ancient equivalent of hitting a jackpot on a slot machine. Every single catfish might as well have been a cash fish. It was like coins and dollar bills were filling their boat. Jesus proved his power, and Jesus proved his provision. He was going to take care of them. And in mere moments, they saw this. This man was worth following. This man was worth giving everything for. These scruffy fishermen marveled at Jesus, and they were never ever the same. As a person who loves details, I love the Gospel of Luke, because as we study, you're going to see that he squeezes every single possible detail into every single one of his accounts. Why? Because I truly believe that he believed in the power of God, and he wanted to tell everyone to investigate it for themselves, to believe it for themselves, to look at it for themselves. He dropped names, he mentioned locations, and he gave details. He didn't just believe in the power of Jesus, he thought it was provable. And of all the Bible authors, Luke teaches us the most about the disciples by far. This was likely because he was friends with a lot of them. He was a missionary with Paul, so he got to know a lot of these dudes during his time. So Luke does not shy away from the real story of the real disciples. Yeah, he mentions their shortcomings. He mentions the places they failed, but he wants you to see the bigger picture. These fishermen, they were just average people. People like you and like me. They had their doubts. They made their mistakes, and they were far from qualified to help start a worldwide religion. Jesus was in the wrong place. Why was he at the dock? When everything in their life was absolutely ordinary, they discovered something extraordinary at that dock. Jesus stepped into their boat, and they stepped out as different people. They were changed. And I love the line, they left everything and followed him. They dropped their tackle boxes. They dropped their nets. Many of them might have put their boats on Craigslist. They were ready to give everything they had to this radical rabbi. They were ready to give everything they had to Jesus. And their lives and the world was turned upside down because of it. Ultimately, a worldwide movement was sparked from that dock. These men were pioneers, and Jesus was their purpose. And for them, everything started on that boat, and everything was left on that boat. The example of the disciples really does beg a question. If you want to see a movement spark, what do you need to leave behind? They dropped their nets. What do you need to drop? Is it an unhealthy routine, a harmful friendship, a purposeless path, or even a career that you know isn't right for you? Whatever it is, just leave it. Jesus has the power to provide. He proves it over and over and over again. Jesus will take care of you. Jesus has the power to come through for you. He proved it to the disciples, and he'll prove it to you too. So leave what you need to leave and follow him. He will take care of the rest. He will take care of everything. So drop your nets and follow Jesus of Nazareth. So as we conclude this part of our investigation into the extraordinary life of Jesus Christ, we discover that even in the most likely circumstances, God's power, it prevails. So just like Jesus, he chose these perfectly imperfect fishermen to be pioneers for his movement. He does the same for us. God can use you to do amazing things. So follow the example of these humble fishermen. Cast aside the nets of mediocrity and embrace the adventure of following Jesus. Leave behind the doubts, the fears, the comfort zones that are hindering your progress, and move forward in faith. Because in the end, it's not about where you've been or even what you've left behind. It's about the journey of a lifetime and that person and that purpose who is Jesus. We are guided by a Savior who takes our ordinary existence and turns it into an extraordinary adventure. And for the disciples, that adventure was a movement, and that's true for you too. So allow your investigation into Jesus to be the motivation to step out in faith. Because every major movement was sparked by a moment of obedience. So what is your moment of obedience? Get out there and take it.